Hello, Simmers. We're here once again in FHM 11 in the SSHL. And what we're going to do in this one is recap the first month of the regular season simulation. So let's get right to it. Starting out with the Anaheim Ducks, who went 6-9 during October, 12 points on the season so far. Terry leads the team in scoring with 10 points in 14 games played. And in goal, you have a .913 save percentage for Dostal, who's played 9 games so far. But it seems like offense is definitely an issue so far for LeGreen's Anaheim Ducks. And then you have the 3-7-5 Boston Bruins controlled by Tom. You have Frank Vetrano with 13 points leading the team. And then in goal, you have an .865 save percentage for Swayman in 13 games played. Samsonov in 3 games played with a .916. So that'll be interesting to see what happens in goal for Boston. And then Boston did have a few injuries over the course of October. You have Ian Cole, who suffered an MCL sprain for 2 to 3 weeks. Jeffrey Veal, who's a 1.5-star talent winger, with a fractured tibia for 1 to 2 months. And then the biggest one of the group, David Pasternak, their captain, 4.5-star ability, out indefinite. So probably for the rest of the regular season. And that is going to be a huge blow for Boston. So certainly very unfortunate for Tom and the Boston Bruins. And then you have Skyler and the Buffalo Sabres, 5-11 currently. Thompson leads the team with 14 points in 16 games played. And then in goal, you have a .908 save percentage for Luukkonen in 16 games played. And then injury-wise for Buffalo, you have Bryson and Norris, who went down with long-term injuries. And then you have the 3-9-1 Calgary Flames controlled by Phil. It's not looking good for them to start out this season for sure. You have Coleman leading the way with 8 points in 13 games played. And then in goal, you have a .874 save percentage for Wolf in 12 games played. And now moving on to the next human control team, M1's New York Rangers, who are 7-6-1 currently. JT Miller leading the scoring with 14 points in 14 games played. And in goal, you have an .893 save percentage for Igor Shesterkin in 9 games played so far. And then a .908 for Quick in 5 games played. So I know it's early, but you have to wonder about the contract situation of Shesterkin. And then you have the 6-9-1 Pittsburgh Penguins, run by Damon. Currently leading the way in points. No surprise here is Sidney Crosby with 14 points in 16 games played. And a goal in 9 games played for Jari, you have an .889 save percentage. But then Blomqvist in 7 games played has a .919 save percentage. So maybe Blomqvist gets the nod a bit more often, especially given his age, only 22, has some more growing to do, whereas Jari is 29. And then Pittsburgh has gotten quite unlucky with the injury bug here. Obviously, you have Nedeljkovic, who's been out since July 1st, Nieto, you have Lazat, you have Rust as well. But then you also have Rutger McGrogerty, who went down on October 8th for 2 to 3 months. You have Koivunen, who went down for 2 to 3 weeks, 2-star talent. And then you have Erik Karlsson, the biggest injury so far for them, 2 to 3 weeks with a bone bruise since October 28th. So it's the injury bug so far at least has not been friendly to the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then you have the 4-9-2 St. Louis Blues controlled by PQ. So a bit of a surprise here. I was expecting St. Louis to have a better start for sure, especially considering their defensive grades. I mean, it seems like they have some pretty good simulators here. So we'll go into the stats and check what's going on here. You have Kyrou leading the way with 17 points for them. Thomas has 13 points. And then in goal, you have Binnington with an .883 save percentage and then Hoffer with an .899. So that may be part of the problem there in goal. They're not looking too great so far. So we'll see what St. Louis does to resolve that. And then you have the 8-3-4 Utah Mammoth led by Drew, who is currently first in the Human GM team power rankings. As you have Keller leading the way in scoring with 17 points in 15 games played. And then in goal, you have a .906 save percentage for Vejmelka in 10 games played. And for Ingram in 6 games played, he has a .923. So in goal, looking great for Utah. Keller leading the way in scoring, and then you have Cooley and Kerfoot and Sergachev all producing as well. So that is just a great recipe for success so far in Utah. Obviously, it's still very early. We'll see what happens as the season goes on, but it's looking good so far for the Utah Mammoth. And then you have Treehouse Mountains Vegas Golden Knights, who are currently 7-5-3 on the season. Barbashev currently leads the way with 19 points in 15 games played, 10 goals. And in goal, you have Hill in 12 games played with an .890 save percentage, and then Korpisalo in 4 games played with an .868. So in goal, looking a bit rough so far for Vegas, but they are in a decent position with that 7-5-3 record. So let's check out the team stats here. You have Vegas leading the way among human control teams with a 3.67 goals for per game. Then goals against wise, you have the Pittsburgh Penguins leading the way, 15th in the league currently with a 3 goals against per game. And then Utah as well is tied with Pittsburgh in that category. And then face-off wise, you have the St. Louis Blues with a 51.3% success rate in the face-off circle, currently 8th in the league, but once again, first among human control teams. Down on the power play, you have the Boston Bruins leading the way with a 29.2% on the power play, first in the league, and of course, first among human control teams. And then on the penalty kill, you have the Buffalo Sabres with a 92.6% penalty kill, first in the league, and of course, first among human control teams. Now let's get a look at some of the league leaders. For goals, assists, and points, you have Kucherov leading the way for all three categories, 12 goals, 17 assists, 29 points. Then the shots department, Connor McDavid leads with 71. Face-off percentage, Casey Cizikas leads the way for the Islanders with a 63.6. And then for shots blocked, Charlie McAvoy of Boston leads the way with 51. Power play goals, Jake Gensel currently with 4. And then you have a lot of other players tied with him, actually. Keller, Kucherov, Larkin, Pettersson, Scheifele, Stamkos, Stroman, Vetrano, all with 4 as well. And then short-handed goals-wise, you have Danton Heinen and Matthew Olivier leading the way with 2 goals each. Now let's check out the goalie leaders. For wins, you have Stolarz and Vasilevsky tied with 9 wins to lead the league so far. Losses, you have Luukkonen currently with 11. Ties and OT losses, you have Swayman with 4. Goals against, you have Luukkonen with 49. Goals against average, you have Justus Annunen with a 1.24. Save percentage, you have Annunen leading the way with a .954. And then for shutouts, you have Gustafsson leading the way with 2 shutouts for Minnesota. And the current best goal saved above average is Spencer Knight of the Chicago Blackhawks with a 13.57. And to end things off, here is a look at the current season standings. You have LA leading the way in the Pacific, Tampa leading the way in the Atlantic, the Islanders leading the way in the Metro, and the Chicago Blackhawks leading the way in the Central. So with that, I think that'll just about do it for this month's recap and one things off here, but not before, of course, I thank the channel members. Thank you guys so much for all your supports, and I'll see you guys in the next one.